You're good? Please relax. I can feel there is a lot of tension around. Please relax. This is going to be moments of sharing. I would want to ask you some questions, so you better be ready. First, let me welcome you to Kenya and join all the other people who you may have interacted in the course of your stay here in Kenya. Feel at home, and if any one of you chooses not to go back to America, we will give you a Kenyan citizenship. And the reason is I am a scientist by training, not at the Havard Business School, but at Nairobi University. And I slightly feel intimidated by this Havard story, because here in Kenya, the best university we have, and we normally bully others, is Nairobi University. So we normally tell the other people, you come from Kenyatta University and Moi University and all the other universities. But then there is the University of Nairobi. I don't know what to say to Harvard Business School. But being a scientist, Kenya, if you read between the lines of science, the earliest remains of man have been traced to Kenya. So this is the home of human origin. And therefore, when you are in Kenya, you are at home. So I should have started by saying, welcome home. Secondly, you are in the continent of the future. I say the future because as a leader in this continent, there is every reason, those of you who are in business school, there is every reason for you to think about the future. And the future is here. The future is here for 3.5 reasons. This is the continent with the highest renewable energy capacity and potential. As you've heard, Kenya is 93% green on our grid. We intend to make it 100% in the next 7 years. Kenya will all be green energy. And the future is green. I know there are people who still need some persuasion about where the future is. I don't expect that from anybody from Harvard Business School. I know all of you are persuaded that the future is green. And therefore, if we have 60% of the world's renewable energy assets, that's the future. Secondly, this is the continent that has the youngest population. Our median age is 20, 19 and a half actually. And 50% of the world's workforce by 2050 40% will be coming from this continent. 40% of the world's workforce will come from this continent by 2050. And by 2050, a quarter of the world's population will live in this continent. This will be the largest market then. On top of that, mineral resources, natural resources, this is the place. And therefore, as you think about the future, think about this continent. And as leaders in this continent, we are working at it to make sure that we consolidate the African market into a single market. You must have heard about Africa Continental Free Trade Area. 55 countries, 54 are already signed in. And we are determined to make sure that this continent becomes that continent of the future. And if you are thinking about food security, global food security, 65% of the world's arable, uncultivated land is in Africa. That's where the food security of the future is going to be. So I just want to persuade you that as you walk in the soils of, step in the soils of this continent, just think about the future. And you made the right decision to come this way. Good professor, thank you very much for making it possible for these great people to visit our continent. And just to assure you that we are weaving a new narrative, a narrative that speaks to the reality of what this continent is about. For a very long time, the narrative around this continent was about war and conflict and disease and poverty and hunger. I want to tell you, this continent is about opportunity. It's about investment. This is the future. Professor here from Nigeria will tell you about a Nigerian proverb that says, until the lion learned to write, all stories glorified the hunter. We're beginning to write our own story. We've begun to write our own story. Many people have written stories about us for a long time. We've learned how to write our own story. And we're going to write this right story about this continent. So, to you, as you think about the future, as you think about opportunities in the future, as you think about investment, business, entrepreneurship over the future, you will do yourselves well to think about this continent. And we will be here to partner with you and to see how we can do this together. It's no longer going to be the North versus the South. I think that adversarial engagement is no longer necessary. We've made a decision ourselves that we're going to be part of the solution. We're going to provide, our own ideas, our own thoughts, and inform what ultimately becomes global solutions. So together again, we will forge that partnership and build the future together. I don't want to make this a lecture, but I want to listen to anybody who wants to know something different. And finally, I will also ask a few questions at the end. So thank you very much. Welcome to Kenya. Please, by all means.
Mohammed, Saudi Arabia.
Thank you for welcoming us, Mr. President. I'm really interested in the energy space and the fact that there's a high percentage of clean energy in Kenya. And I'm curious to know what kind of role is the country taking in navigating between the energy transition towards the 100% and also the energy access to households and to the population.
Thank you very much. The energy transition conversation is a conversation that informed most of the debate that we had in COP28 in Dubai. It was a very pointed conversation. And there is a realization by everybody, including the reluctant ones, that the future is green. What we need to agree is how we get there. And the journey to the future already began. There are midway interventions, whether we talk about gas, is going to be a very big component of transition energy. The rest of us, like Kenya, are way ahead in the transition to green energy. We're already moving in that direction. And our push is that we already have huge potential of renewable energy. And sometimes the conversation is between the fossil fuel resources we have, like the one we have in Kenya, for example. We have oil in Kenya. And the decision that I have to make is, do I invest in fossil fuel or do I invest in green energy? And we have made a conscious decision that we're going to invest in renewable energy. And to speak directly to your point, we believe it is possible and progressively it is becoming viable to invest in renewable energy. The cost of solar panels is coming down exponentially. The whole investment around that space, though at the moment still looks high, but I believe that shortly it's going to be the cheapest energy source available. So our push is investment and technology to unlock the potential of renewable energy in our continent. It will not only give us renewable energy, it will supply energy to the 600 million Africans who do not have energy. It will also give us the opportunity for 900 million Africans who don't have clean cooking. And it will also assist other economies to decarbonize their growth. So green growth is the future, not just for Africa, but for everybody else. So if there is going to be, if we are going to decarbonize our industrialization or our growth, we need to unlock the huge potential of renewable energy, and that is in our continent.
Two questions from ladies from the
Hi, thank you so much for having us. I am wondering what you believe is the number one most pressing challenge facing the country today, and how are you thinking about solutions to that problem?
Climate change is the single biggest threat that faces Kenya today. We came out of a drought a year and a half ago, a devastating drought. We lost 2.5 million heads of livestock in Kenya. We lost 9.5 million livestock in the Horn of Africa in 4 countries. And then we came straight from a drought into floods. In the last 2 months, we've lost close to 200 Kenyans to floods. And of course, a lot of infrastructure destroyed and many things. So climate change is the single biggest threat that I see today, because it compounds the other challenges we have. It takes away resources that we would use, for example, for education, for health, and for all the other important social services. We have to reallocate those resources to repair, to feed people, to make sure kids go to school. For example, last year, we had to adjust our budget because we had to feed an extra 4 million kids in school. We had to step up from feeding 1.5 million kids to give them a meal in school. We had to go to 5.5 million kids. So again, it makes it that much more difficult for us to drive our growth. And then there is one more thing that comes with climate change. The whole space around the economy becomes much more complicated to handle for those of us who have the privilege to run the affairs of countries. Because when your budgets are distorted, you quickly sink into debt and debt distress. That's why you have 27 countries in our continent in debt distress, because they cannot handle the crisis, and especially when they come in droves. You have the war in Europe, you have COVID pandemic, then you have effects of climate change. That compounded makes it near impossible to run anything of a semblance of an organized budget. So it becomes a crisis through and through. So this climate change